All right, hi everyone, welcome. Hello. Hi. You guys ready to get started? Yes. Okay, cool. So, welcome to this session today on using AI for study, artificial intelligence tools. My name is Lauren, and I am from the Student Learning Support Service. So, Kat, who just presented to you earlier this morning, is a wonderful colleague of mine. And
Sorry, I'm Heidi Seville. I'm one of the senior librarians here at Flinders University.
So we both sort of teach and develop a lot of resources for using AI tools. So hopefully we can share kind of the highlights for you today and give you a little bit more info to go away for your own studies. Before we get started, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're teaching and learning on this beautiful Bedford Park campus, which is on Kaurna land. I feel incredibly blessed every time I teach on this campus to have such wonderful, wonderful country to teach on. And there's a really rich history here, particularly in this spot where the campus is, that I, implore you to spend some time learning about if you can. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I just also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land here. I also feel really privileged to continue on that process of teaching and learning this land for many, many, many thousands of years. So that's always nice to think of.
And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so today's session is going to go through, like I said, the highlights of everything you need to know about using artificial intelligence tools for your study. So what are some of the tools that you can use? How should you use it here at Flinders University? Kind of what's allowed, what's not allowed, what should you be aware of? How to think critically about your use of AI and what to watch out for. So how to keep yourself from getting in trouble for using AI tools, okay? Before we start though, I would love for you all to jump on Slido here, use your grab your QR codes, that QR code, so that we can see. It was working before, sorry. Let me just check that this is, yeah. When I'm presenting, it should show us the results. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think once people start responding. Here we go. How often do you use AI? Somewhat, 46%, always, 25, never, never's taking. Oh. Maybe we'll give it a little moment. So, okay, roughly half of you sometimes use it, I guess. I think we can pretty safely say that. A quarter of you never use it, and another quarter of you use it very frequently, like always. So that's a really interesting mix. It's actually probably what I would have maybe expected. Okay. Everyone finished with that one? My next question for you is, how do you feel about AI? Wow. I just realised. I don't know if it does or not. It might. I'm not sure. Okay, so, all right. Most of you, well, no, not most of you. I guess, the minority of quite a great minority of you feel bad about AI. So you maybe, for those of you who answered that you don't feel good about AI, does anyone want to share what reasons they put for saying bad? Had a question, yeah?
I guess I'm just a bit unsure about it in terms of I'm unsure how to use it. I'm unsure what's accurate.
Yep.
My partner uses it quite frequently, not for study but for other things. Has sort of been helping me and teaching me how to get little bits of it. But the times I've used it, I guess, for uni-related things, I don't trust the sources, and a lot of them are made up or whatever.
Yeah. So a lack of trust, not feeling sure about how to use it. So, and then, yeah, just really around that, like, can I actually, is this actually appropriate? Is it correct? That kind of
The only
vibe.
time I think I felt like okay or like it's useful is if I put in, say, an article or something, in particular when I haven't understood or something really deep, and just said like, summarize this.
Okay, cool. So you feel better about if you've actually given it a source yourself. Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Did you have your hand? Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm losing my critical.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're losing your critical thinking skills because you're outsourcing that thinking to a machine.
It's very simple. The job, for example, says write 100 words about yourself or use AI, and like, I can't write like that.
Yeah.
I feel kind of shit.
Yeah. Like, what does it say about me if I'm outsourcing, like, writing 100 words about myself to AI? That's a really good point. Yes. Yeah.
That proves your creativity, like
Creativity. Yeah.
blocks, like your viewpoint is blocked.
Yeah.
You're narrowed down to those choices.
Yeah, sure.
You think, like,
Yep.
okay, this is the best answer, and then you can't think out of the box and you can't think of it.
Yeah. So potentially limits your thinking because you're focused on just what that output
And
is.
also, the more you don't know whether it is a correct verified source or if I'm using it,
Yep.
am I going towards the plagiarism or am
Yeah.
I crossing that line or no? I don't know.
Perfect. Great things to be worried about. Again, can you trust what it outputs, and are you going to get in trouble for plagiarism? Hopefully we can address some of those concerns today, but some of the concerns are also extremely valid. And yeah, over here. You go first. Yeah, sure.
I'm very indifferent to it. Not really indifferent, but I see both pros and cons. Yes, it takes creativity, but it's how you use it. The problem is that people aren't able to use it to the best of its advantages. They're using it to make themselves look better because they're not capable of learning properly. Like what I've done in the past is I've chucked in some of my written work in there, like an essay, gotten it to rewrite it and edit it, and then I would take that and then use it and edit it again between the two. And I just do that constantly, making it my own work.
It's that iterative process, a back and forth.
And that's how I've fixed up my work to make it better. So I've had someone actually edit it for me, and I can go and take on that knowledge.
Yep.
The problem is that people haven't learned how to do that yet because it's not taught in schools. Schools are just cut off completely, which has taken away. Plus, also there's not really restrictions yet. Which is
it's because it's so new, right? There's a lot of people who are like, oh, we're just going to say no, you can't use it, so they're not teaching. Well, we would. I guess we call it, it's part of digital literacy, but also just like artificial intelligence literacy, isn't it? It's like learning how to actually use the tool, like you said, to be more critical, to be maybe more creative, all those things. Did you want to add anything? Yeah.
I'm pretty indifferent on it as well. There are, like what you said, there are pros and cons to it. Like, there are like, people do make funny pictures on the internet using AI.
Yeah.
Some of them are weird, actually most of them are.
which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine, because they're using it as for like a joke.
Yeah.
The problem that I have with it is that people, like when I first heard of like AI and what they wanted to do with it, it's like I thought, okay, they're going to use it to like provide help and support for things that we don't want to do, like taxes and other stuff. But turns out they're using it to stuff that we want to
do all the fun stuff,
Like drawing and
exactly, That's right. My background's creative writing, and when I used to teach sometimes, I would tell students like, in creative writing, don't worry, like you guys, your job's safe from the robots. Actually, no, it's not. It's not.
And also it's like, for me, I feel like that's the main reason why people are more scared to go see like younger doctors because of they now have access to AI.
Because of online learning.
Yeah.
They couldn't track it properly back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because older doctors have more experience and actually had to learn their stuff by themselves.
Yeah, so we might see a shift in the way that we kind of think of the knowledge that people have in their different professions. I don't want to spend too long because we do have to get into the session. Can I get maybe just one or two quick answers for people who feel very positively about it? Yeah.
So, even at my job, I find that it cuts down time in tenders, contracts, like maybe put in there like SA laws and things like that. And it helps me manage people more, so I'm getting more time investing time with my team rather than spending hours on admin. So
Sure.
I think that's a positive
Yeah.
side to it as well.
Yeah, all of those sort of menial administrative tasks you can sort of offload a little bit, spend more time on the people stuff, which is what AI really can't replace at the moment. Yeah. Any other positives? Yeah.
You can get a perspective that you wouldn't have been able to. Like if you're reading and reading and reading your own work, you're not really reading it at a certain point.
Yeah. You need a fresh set of eyes.
Also without having to go, hey teacher, hey.
Yeah. And look, it can be a bit of an equity thing, right? Because not everyone can afford to like pay a tutor or pay someone to kind of help them edit their work or something. You know, your tutors at university, sorry guys, they don't have time to read drafts, you know? So it can be something like a tool that you can use to get that fresh perspective on your work. That's really awesome. We've got one last one, just a quick one. One single word would you use to describe your feelings about using AI in study? Last one. Curious. I like that one. Confused. I like that curious and confused came up right next to each other. That's great. Unsure, unknown, helpful, cheating, supportive, anxious. Useful's coming up a few times. Cool. Private teacher, accessible, time-saving, supportive, I don't know. Inexperienced, future, plagiarism. Cool. Great. Has everyone had a chance to upload their word? Yeah? Awesome. This is really helpful for us, by the way, because we want to know what you guys need to know more about. So I'm going to hand over to Heidi now, who's going to share a little bit about what AI actually is.
All right, so I'll be quick about this, just to make sure everyone's on the same page about what these tools actually are and what they can do, and sort of in a non-techie way, how they do it. Oh, that's
wrong one.
That's all right. So, in the non-techie description of this, text generators, I'm going to focus on text generators, any sort of generative AI, what they do is they're designed to provide responses much like a human would to any prompt that you put in. So what they have done is they're trained on a very large data set of information. So that could be lots of text, so that's your ChatGPTs and your Copilots and your Geminis. They might be trained on a whole bunch of images, so that's your DALL-E, your Midjourneys, all different types of tools. So they're trained to learn patterns and to recognise patterns, so that when you put in text, it kind of takes the context of what you're looking for and uses those patterns to try and predict what the next word should be. So these big tools, they're all trained in different ways and on different sources. So the big ones are usually trained on just information that you can find on the internet for free. Okay, so if you think of all the information that's out there for free, some of it's great, some of it is not so great. So that's where some of that issues of trust can come in and what it's doing. Sometimes it will have live access to the internet, so it does a bit of searching and then incorporates that information into its responses as well. Sometimes not, that isn't always available. Sometimes that's just part of a pro version of a tool, so that's a bit of a downside. And it also takes the prompts and responses of other people and yourself as well. So unless you're in a kind of an incognito mode or a private mode, it's taking what you put in. So if you put in all of your essays, it's taking that and it's using that as training data as well. So just be careful of those types of things, where it's getting its information from and how it's using your information as well. Does that make sense to everyone? Awesome. So as I said, when you put something in, it then produces a response based on all those patterns. So if those patterns are good, you get a good response. If those patterns and the training data aren't so good, you won't get as good a response. So that's some of the things that we need to start being aware of if you're not sure and haven't started thinking in that way before. So that's what these tools are. Lots of different tools that are out there. So we mentioned ChatGPT, the first big one on the field. Gemini is the Google version. People use Grammarly much as well. Yep, so that incorporates a lot of generative AI as well now in how it works. The top two are tools that we have available here at Flinders University. Okay, so Copilot is a Microsoft AI tool. We've just recently got that available for student use. So what that means is that you get data protection with that. So what you type in isn't getting used as training data, which is fantastic.
and all your information is safe and secure behind Flinders University login. So that's a good thing. So that's a big one. The other one we've got is Study Buddy, which is produced by the Student Learning Support Service. So we'll see a bit more information about that in a second as well. I think we've got some slides about it later.
Okay.
Yeah, we can come to it.
I've got it live. Yeah.
That one's a really cool one because it's trained just on SLSS resources. So you know that training data is really good, and the answers you're going to get are going to be good. Yeah?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so Copilot Chat. So this is one that you've got access to. So this is like ChatGPT, like the big ones, useful for all different ways to help you when you're studying. So help you brainstorm, get information on a topic to help you understand something, summarise things, improve your writing and grammar, and generate images as well. So it does text and images, which is quite fun. So all you need to do is log in with your Flinders University FAN and password. I'll show you a website where you can actually access that, and it has instructions for doing that. All right. All right, so let's have a look at some ways you can actually use Copilot Chat. Oh, but first.
Yeah. So that's a kind of big snapshot of what all of the different AI tools are. But of course, I'm sure one of your big questions while you're here today is like, how can I actually use this in my study? So the very, very, very first thing that you need to know is whether or not you're allowed to use AI tools in your topic is decided by your topic coordinator. Okay, so Flinders does not have a single policy about whether or you can or cannot use AI, right? Because there's, what's appropriate in computer science is completely different to what's appropriate in history, to what's appropriate in nursing, for example, right? There's also so many different tools and so many different ways that you can use AI. So the very first thing you need to do before you use any tool for any purpose is check your topic. So it might be in your topic flow site, okay? It should be in there, usually where the assessment instructions can be found. It might be in your program handbook as well. If you can't find any information about whether or not AI tools are permitted, just ask. Ask your tutor, ask your topic coordinator, post on your flow discussion board. Always find out a yes or no or yes but before you embark on using any tool, okay? If you don't, you can get yourself into academic misconduct, probably by accident, if you don't check that, okay? It's really important that you are aware of how you're using it. And what's allowed, exactly what's allowed. Some assessments will say, yes, you can use it for everything. Some will say you can use this specific tool in this specific way. So it might be you can use, why is Teams suddenly opening? That's really weird. That's okay. It's just, some might say like gone too far. You can use it for planning. And brainstorming, for example, or you can use it for drafting, or you can use it for summarising a reading if you're having trouble with it. But you may not use it for producing content that you submit as your own, for example. That's a very, very common restriction, that you can use it for brainstorming, use it for editing, but you cannot use it for producing content. If you were to use it for producing content, if there was a restriction, then there would be problems with academic integrity. So that can come under plagiarism and it can come under contract cheating. Okay, so just be aware, make sure that you know about that, okay? You might also use it for lots of different things though. So one way that's really useful is to give you kind of a background about some ideas in your topic. You might be studying something quite complex. You might be given a range of really difficult readings. You might use AI to help you understand that kind of as, the background. In the way that once upon a time, if you didn't understand something, you might have just gone to Google and found like a Wikipedia entry or something to help you understand something. Same thing. That's a really good starting point. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is the type of information that would end up in your assignment. So helping it, using it to help you understand things. Helping it to, so as a creative and a reflective and a critical thinking tool. So putting in prompts and getting it to evaluate your ideas, getting it to, sometimes you can be quite creative and say like, okay, can you compare X idea to Y idea? They might be from two completely different fields, and just kind of see what it comes up with. It can be a way of expanding your thinking in that way if you prompt it in the right way. If you don't prompt it in the right way, the same thing can happen that you were kind of suggesting, where you can end up in a bit of a narrow box. Use it for revision, for studying. You might upload some of your important course content and ask it to create flashcards for study. There's some tools that are really good at that, though just be careful, again, when you're uploading any university information, do so with something like Copilot Chat, which is a closed system, so it's safe. Okay, if you were to upload it to ChatGPT, that could be a copyright issue. So this is an example of asking Copilot to create a study plan. The prompt is, make me a study plan. I have an essay in 14 days. It is 1,500 words. It requires research. I have 2 hours a day to work on it, and I cannot work on Sundays. So quite a lot of information there about like the requirements, and it's given us quite a cool little breakdown, a timeline to help you stick to. So if you have any problems with time management or, scheduling your study, keeping on track, you can use a tool like this. Day 1 or 2, topic selection and initial research. Days 3 to 4, outline creation. Days 5 to 6, in-depth research. I would argue that, in-depth research might require, more than 2 days, whereas the 2 days for outline creation, you might want to tweak this a little bit. They're not even tasks, right? It's going to take you longer to do research than to create an outline. So you can play with your prompts though. This is why it's important to evaluate output. But as you can see, it's still given us a nice breakdown of all the tasks involved, however you choose to then divvy those up. You can also ask it to help you with your research topic, to help you brainstorm, summarize something, generate some questions about something like a reading, some critical questions. If you're preparing for a tutorial, if you've got a really discussion-based tutorial that relies on you having, thought about the readings and come to class prepared, it could be a really useful tool to help you prepare for those classes. Give me something to think about that I can talk about in class. So explain it like I'm 5 kind of thing if you don't understand something, or a comparison. So this example, explain the concept of cognitive psychology in simple terms for a beginner. Sure, cognitive psychology is the study of how our minds work. It looks at how we think, learn, remember, and solve problems. Here are some key points to help you understand. Well, I won't read the whole thing, but you can see this is a really, really simple breakdown of cognitive psychology, right? So you might play with the, prompt, okay, got the real basics, let's go a little bit more advanced. Can you explain this to me as though you are a tutor and I am a first-year undergraduate student, okay? So that it's going to take on that role that you give it and the role that you want it to have for you as well. So play with that to kind of get into more depth. Or take each one of these and say, okay, can you explore mental processes in more depth for me? Explain it to me like an undergraduate, to an undergraduate student. And using it for reading. With Copilot Chat, you can open up the chat bar in your window on Chrome or on Microsoft Edge browser. And it means that if you've got something open in that main page, a web page, a PDF, something like that, you can ask it to summarize the text. Here we go. Yeah. So as you can see here, we've got our reading open in the main browser, and on the side here, you can chat with Copilot to help you understand that paper. So you can ask it to summarize the paper, you could ask it to point out what are the strengths and limitations of this paper, or you could ask it, can you summarize what the methodology of the research was, or can you draw out the most important conclusions from this paper. You could use it to compare it to something else that you've been thinking about. Can you tell me how the information from this paper might relate to X topic, right? So it can be a really useful study tool in that context. I do want to make clear though, having that chat doesn't replace the very important skill of learning how to read at at university, okay? Because you will have a lot of complicated texts to read. Journal articles are not easy. Learning how to read journal articles is not easy. So use this as a tool to help you in that process. Don't use it as a tool to replace that process. If you use it to replace that process, you will never learn it, okay? And then you're always going to be behind. When you get out in the real world, you need to have these skills, right? So supplement the skill, don't replace the skill, please. And then Study Buddy. So as Heidi said, Flinders have created our own AI tool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So Study Buddy can be found on the SLSS Canvas site, okay? So the SLSS Canvas site might not come up on your homepage. You might need to search for it. But you should be able to find it through the help menu as well. Or hopefully it's linked in your topic pages. So at the top here we have Study Buddy and Study Buddy Drafts. So as Heidi said, these are tools that are trained on all of our resources, and they take on the role of a tutor. It's called a Socratic tutor. It's the type of tutor that tells you information but also asks you questions as it goes. So it's designed to be a critical tutor. These tools are safe to use without worrying about academic integrity issues, because they won't create any content for you. They will act as a guide. So you could ask Study Buddy, for example, can you help me understand paraphrasing better? Or can you help me develop an APA 7 reference for this journal article? And again, it won't do the work for you, but it will, you know, talk you through it and help give you the information you need to do it. Same with Study Buddy Drafts. If you upload, your essay, for example, it will give you feedback without fixing it for you. It'll tell you the issues that you need to be looking at. Yeah.
It says that you're not allowed to use generative AI. Are you still allowed to use that?
Ask. Yeah. I would never use it if it says no AI tools at all, then I would steer clear of everything, just to be safe. There's a little bit of a grey line around tools like this and around things like Grammarly, to be honest. Some topic coordinators just see them as, it's like trying to ban Google, you know, like, whereas others will see it as, no, I said no AI tools, so you cannot use any AI tools. So just ask. Yeah, always ask. Yeah.
So just like on that, I know last year that Grammarly was picked up as an AI tool when submitting it, and I don't know if this was all topics, but one of my topics in a reference list, if you used AI, you just had to outline which tool, and I think why, like,
yes.
I used Grammarly to edit, and then it just said, like, if you've done this, you may be asked to provide, like, alternate draft.
Yes.
Like the draft you submitted before.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that, yes, because that's a really, really important point. So we're going to come back to that. How do we acknowledge AI tools once we've used them? So super, super important to know. But just really quickly, as an example of what Study Buddy looks like when you use it. So the prompt here is help me put this into APA 7 referencing, and they've copied and pasted the information for a journal article, and Study Buddy has just broken down what they need. So it's saying, you know, it can't actually do it. Oh no. Oh yes, it has done it. It has done it. Referencing is one of those things that it's, you know, it's fine. You can get that from, you know, Google Scholar. So it's broken it down and told you where all of those pieces of information go in that reference. So it's, like I said, it's acting as a tutor. It's not simply doing the work for you. It's talking it through and explaining it to you so that it can act as that sort of learning tool. Okay. Any questions quickly about those before we move on to when not to use generative AI? No? Everyone's feeling okay? Yeah?
I'm just going to ask if you heard about, I don't know if it is AI, it's sort of like it, it's called Obsidian.
Ah.
Have you heard of it? It's to support like creative writers and everything to map out stuff.
I don't know a lot about it, but I know the name.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Obsidian, yeah.
Would that be allowed to use, especially if you're trying to map things out?
I would ask your tutors.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you studying like a creative topic?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, they could be a little bit behind the 8 ball in the creative arts. They could be a bit cautious about these things. I would talk it through with your tutor and see what they think.
Okay.
Explain how you want to use it and what it does.
It creates visual maps that you can use to connect characters and stories and everything. So it's all your stuff, but you're using it for mapping.
Something like that might be okay.
Yeah.
But talk about it with your tutor first so they know, because, and as I said, I'm going to come back to acknowledging, so they know exactly how you're using the tool and for what purpose, so they can distinguish what's your work and what might have, because there's lots of other tools that help you do that as well. So
I was wondering if it was, because it's a very popular one, I just want to know if it's also a safe one, because a lot of AIs could have underlying code that could collect personal information.
That's it. I don't know about that specific tool. Generally speaking, if it's a free tool, it's gathering your data.
Yeah, it's free, but then it's also not. Because you can pay for premium.
Yeah, right. My guess, Heidi, I don't know if you agree, my guess would be the free version of it is probably gathering your data, because that you don't get anything for free if they're generally speaking.
I was expecting that.
I can't tell you specifically because I don't know enough about that tool, but I would investigate.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a good question. These are the questions you need to ask, right? These are good questions to be asking, and you should ask these questions. Unfortunately, there's thousands of AI tools, so we don't know all of them.
Copilot Chat and Study Buddy, because they are sort of within our systems, they are kind of those closed environments. But when you're looking at other tools, you really want to have a look at the terms of service, the privacy policies, the security features, all those kinds of things. So using these tools, we can't take away that little bit of work for you. You can be sure you're okay with those tools. But for anything else, you want to double check those things.
Especially, like I said, if it's a free tool, I would always assume they're training on your data. The only reason Microsoft Copilot Chat is free for you to use is because the university is paying for you to use it. So it's actually not free, it's just free for you, right? Same with Study Buddy. Study Buddy is free for you because the university is paying for it, right? So, there was a hand up over here. Yeah.
I'm on Flow, but I can't find Study Buddy.
Okay, I'll quickly just talk you through how, because the SLSS Flow site is a little bit hidden, okay? Unfortunately, we've tried very hard to make it more accessible. Oh no, it's not letting me show. Why doesn't it let me just share my screen if it's not a presentation?
Just Google for this learning tool service, get to their website, and then there's a link to it from there. I usually find that's the easiest.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest. Yeah, go via the SLSS website rather than Canvas site. I could talk you through the steps of getting it via Canvas, but it's not letting me share. That's.
I think there was a link on the orientation.
Oh, okay, cool. Yep, awesome. And then hopefully actually no. I'm not sure about that. I won't. Yeah. Okay. All right, Heidi, do you want to talk us through when not to use AI?
So AI, great for different things, not so great at other things for some of the reasons we've talked about before in terms of the training data and how they work. So, oh gosh, I'm doing it again. Yep. So these tools do have their limitations. So for any task that you're doing for these ones, probably would recommend not using generative AI tools, at least not the generic ones like your Copilot Chat, like your ChatGPT, like your Gemini. Because they don't rely on scholarly sources, at university that's what you're going to be expected to use. So those tools aren't great at getting at that academic scholarly research kind of information, all right? So that's where you need to look a little bit elsewhere. So finding scholarly sources, the best thing to do is to use the library resources. So again, things that the university pays for you to have access to, so make use of those great resources. And at some stage soon, that's going to have its own little AI feature as well, so keep an eye out for that one. So these tools can provide citations. Often they're things from the internet. So again, just free things off the internet, so they won't be those scholarly sources that you can find. Sometimes you can ask it to provide a citation for something that you're talking about or want to write about. Often these are made up as well. So it might learn different patterns. So it might learn an author's name, and it might learn a title, and it might learn a journal title, but then it will just mash it all together and you'll just come up with something that doesn't exist. So again, just be aware that can happen. The last one, probably get Lauren to talk about this one. To rewrite text you've written, and it comes to some of the things that you've mentioned already.
Yeah, so I would avoid, it can be useful to get feedback on your writing from a tool like Copilot Chat, but excuse me, avoid having it actually rewrite your work for you. There's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, again, it's really important that you develop your own voice and style at university. That's what you're here to do, is learn how to communicate. So we don't want you to, shift that really important thinking skill elsewhere as much as you can. The second reason is it is going to make it much more likely that it will be picked up by an AI text matching software, right? Like Turnitin. So it can be an academic integrity issue even if the work is your own to begin with. If it's been rewritten by AI, that can cross the line depending on, again, what restrictions have been set up by your topic coordinator. So use it if you use something like Study Buddy, it will give you feedback on your work, and that you can then use that feedback to make those changes yourself. And that's the important thing. Again, that's the skill you want to learn. And like I said, it's really important, just find your own voice. That's a super important skill to have, is to find your voice in your own communication. So yeah, that's that one. Over to prompting. Okay, so how do we write really good prompts? Oh, actually, before we do, does anyone have any questions about what Heidi was just talking about?
Using Study Buddy feedback and stuff like that, is there a limit to how many assignments you can use it with?
No, there's a limit to how much text you can put in. So with Study Buddy, which is like the tutor, I think it's like 150 words, which is, if you're asking it a question. And with Study Buddy Drafts, I think it's 2,000 words, I think, per interaction. I can't remember if there is a total interaction limit. I don't believe that there is, but I don't want to say that 100%. There might be a limit, but you definitely can have a conversation with it. Yeah. Should be hopefully enough to get what you need from it in a day. Okay, so how do we write good prompts? Because as we've said, the output you get from AI is only as good as the input that you give it, right? So if you want a good quality information coming, or if you want to get to a point where you've got something that's actually really good and useful, you're probably going to need, firstly, a really good initial prompt, and you're probably going to have to prompt quite a few times and have a conversation with the AI tool that you're using. So the first thing we want to think about is, what actually is your task? What do you want, say, Copilot to do? Okay, in this context, I want it to summarize the key findings of a research paper on climate change. What role do I want Copilot to play? So outline what role it is. Act as an academic tutor. What is the context? So why do I need this? What is the scope of the task? So this summary is needed for an environmental science literature review that will inform a second-year research paper, focus on the outcomes of the research and its limitations. And then what do I want the output to look like? So what audience is it for? How complex should it be? How long should it be? Should it be prose? Should it be dot points, etc.? So the output should be a clear and concise summary in bullet points suitable for an undergraduate student with an introductory understanding of environmental science. Use an academic and professional tone. Don't exceed 200 words. So I've given quite a lot of information to Copilot Chat here. You might have prompts that are much shorter than this that still do all of those things, so help me brainstorm an outline about climate change, act as an expert on climate change, and provide bullet points. That's still quite detailed, but it's, shorter than this. So when you are prompting, try to think about those 4 important things: the task, the role, the context, and what the output will look like. That will help your prompting enormously. And if you do a direct comparison, a prompt that you might have used without really thinking about it versus a prompt that you use that's detailed like this, you hopefully will be pleasantly surprised by how good that output is. And then don't forget to tweak it. Evaluate the output. Is this actually what I need? Is part of this good? Is part of it bad? Why? Why not? Okay, I'm going to re-prompt. Change your prompt, do it again. Try a few different ways until you get sort of what you need.
Just love that. We found that sometimes, I don't know if you found this as well, if you keep interacting with one of these tools over and over in the same chat, it starts to lose its mind. It starts to get a little bit wonky and starts to generate a little bit of nonsense. It starts to get a bit confused. So often, I find what's really useful is to take the last best prompt, or like a collaboration of all your prompts for the best bits of those, and start a new chat. And that starts a fresh chat with whatever tool it is that you're using. It doesn't remember the rest of what you've talked about. It just starts from that one prompt that you put in, and then it kind of resets itself.
Yeah.
You find that's quite useful.
And on that as well, it does depend a little bit on which tool you're using and which version of which tool, because they all have different sort of memories and memory capabilities. So again, play around with it and yeah, you'll find what works for you.
All right, on to critically evaluating the output. So as Lauren said, this is one thing that you do want to do, and there's a few different things to think about. Just in the back of your mind though, it's good to just be aware of these general ideas, and again, they get back to that idea of what it's been trained on and what the limitations are that can come from that. So it doesn't understand anything, so it just knows patterns of words, and it's just replicating those patterns of words. It doesn't really understand things. We're sort of working on this. There's more reasoning agents that are coming out that are slowly working on that, but that's still sort of in progress at the moment, but it's a very good space to watch. But yeah, it doesn't understand its outputs. We've talked already about the data limitations depending on what information it has been trained on. So sometimes it can be trained on really good high quality stuff. So if it's a very specific tool like StudyBuddy, otherwise it might just be trained on a whole bunch of stuff. So sometimes that might be great, sometimes not so great. So that's what we need to do a little bit more digging on when we're reading the output. It's also really important to be aware of some of the biases that come in with that information as well. So not only could it be lacking information, so it might not know anything recent, it might not know anything that isn't written much about. So if you try and look for information for yourself, it sometimes just makes up a biography, which is quite interesting. Sometimes it will say, I don't know, there's not enough information out there, so it's really clear about that, but sometimes it will just make stuff up. But yeah, sometimes it could just be there's a lot of bias in the training data already. So it could be a lot of different perspectives that you might be missing. This is a particular issue around Indigenous knowledges, and there's some tools that are being, I think, developed that are trying to fill that gap, but that is a gap that could exist. But for all of these, there's kind of ways around these things. You just need to know that these are potential limitations, and there's things that you can do. So if you're worried about whether the information is inaccurate or incomplete or not at a good enough quality for what you're looking for, so when we talk about that academic critical, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Critical, like scholarly
sources?
sources?
Sources.
Literature?
Yes. No, there's a term I'm thinking
Okay.
of, and it's just gone. But anyway, if you're looking for that high quality information, credible, that's
Credible.
the word. Thank you. That's where you want to look at the library resources instead. So Find It at Flinders, that's our big search tool. We also have lots of research tools for specific disciplines or specific types of information like statistics, like news, like videos, whatever it might be. So usually you'll start to learn about those in the courses that you're doing. You'll be introduced to those great sources. Sometimes you might be better off just searching the web for some official information, so from government sources, NGO reports, whatever it might be. And if the sources, so the tools do provide you citations, just follow those and see where they take you and critically evaluate the content yourself, okay? See if it's something that you feel comfortable relying upon. I guess that's the question you always want to come back to. Am I comfortable relying on this information? Sometimes you might be told to use the output generated by ChatGPT or by Copilot Chat. So they might say, give us your prompts, give us the output, and then you critically evaluate that. So that might be your task. So that would be a completely different scenario, okay? Other things you want to look out for are like, the tone of the writing, whether it has enough information depending on what you prompted. So a few different ways you need to think about the output that's being generated.
And I would just say as well, just remember that like your tutor, the people marking your assignments are experts in their fields, right? So they know a lot about these topics, and they can tell. They can tell if it's often these tools like Copilot, etc., will only give you that really kind of shallow understanding of a topic, or that kind of top level. Even if you dig down with really good prompting, you can still end up with something that's not really as critical or as in depth as it would be if you had gone to those, proper scholarly sources. And your tutors will recognise this, okay? They're very experienced, so just be aware of that as well. That evaluating it is really important for that reason too.
Yeah. So usually we recommend just to use it for that kind of background information, brainstorming, those types of ideas, and then you can build on it yourself and help tweak things. Yeah. So it's part of that process with you. It's a productive tool. It's not a replacement tool, like we've said. Yeah.
Okay, so then how do we acknowledge it? Okay, so this is the big question around how do we ensure that we're not accidentally, ending up in the area of academic misconduct, because nobody wants to be accused of academic misconduct. So, as I said at the very beginning, when we started on our journey together this morning, always check your topic. And always ask if you are unsure whether or not you may use AI tools, which AI tools, and how they can be used. The academic integrity policy was updated, I think, at the end of 2023 to be much more explicit about the use of AI. And misuse of AI tools can fall under plagiarism, contract cheating, and misrepresentation, depending on how they're used. So if you use an AI tool and you say copy and paste a paragraph of that into your assignment, that can be considered plagiarism if you're using it beyond the ways, described by your topic coordinator. If you create a whole essay in an AI tool, that's contract cheating. Contract cheating is an automatic level 2 academic misconduct, okay? Level 2 academic misconduct is very serious and it has very serious consequences. So you need to be aware of that when you are embarking on these tools. But that's just the scary stuff. It is actually okay, all right? The reason when it is okay, all you need to do is be honest and transparent in how you have used these tools, okay? So when you are citing and acknowledging it, firstly, different referencing systems would have their own ways of citing an AI tool, and depending on how you use it, depends on whether or not it needs to go in your reference list. But what the really, really important part is, and something that's different from ordinary referencing, is if you have used an AI tool in any part of your assignment, from that sort of brainstorming or understanding a topic phase through to creating content and evaluating content to editing and proofreading, is to provide an acknowledgement of how you have used it. So this acknowledgement is sort of like a little short paragraph that will come at the end of your assignment, sort of maybe just above your reference list or at the end of your reference list, and it will outline which AI tool or tools you have used and how. So what that might look like is something like this. I acknowledge the use of Copilot Chat to generate ideas for my essay structure using the prompt, how can students use AI tools ethically in their work? I critically analysed the output and kept 2 of the suggestions. I then asked for further clarification on the 2 outputs before using the suggested terminology to begin a scoping search of the literature. The rest of the output is my own work. Screenshots of my interactions with Copilot Chat have been provided. So you'll see that this is quite detailed in explaining exactly how that tool was used, right? This is important because it lets your tutor know if it is flagged and Turnitin. So Turnitin is software that all assignments go through when you submit them. Traditionally, it's been used for text matching. So it sort of scans, analyzes your assignment versus work from, across the internet and looks for direct matches. But more recently, it includes AI detection tools. So this analyzes the structure of your work and looks to see whether or not it's likely that that output was generated by AI. It doesn't mean it's always perfect, but if it does flag, it doesn't mean you'll automatically fail if it's flagged, by the way, but it might give your tutor something more in depth to look at. They might look at your assignment more thoroughly and go, okay, well, it's flagged, so I'm going to read this much more closely and see if I can figure out what's going on here. For this reason, it's also really important that, as was suggested over here, you keep track of what you have done with an AI tool. So if, for example, you use Grammarly, keep a save of your draft before you have edited it with Grammarly and then after whatever you have actually submitted. If you've got a Grammarly account and you use the web-based version of Grammarly and you upload your work into the Grammarly site, you've got a version history there. So you can go back and access version histories. I also recommend everybody here has access to Microsoft Suite. So you've got a Microsoft Word account and OneDrive. If you use your Microsoft Word saved in your OneDrive account that you get for free through Flinders University, you can also access version histories. So keep track of all of the versions of your work, right through from the initial brainstorming, your research notes, your drafts, your plans, everything. Keep everything, okay? Keep screenshots if you have been using a tool to have a conversation with, or you can export the chat in a lot of these tools, you can save it. So do all of those things so that just in case something flags on Turnitin and your tutor asks you, look, you've got a percentage match that says this is likely to have been generated by AI. There's nothing in your acknowledgement that sort of, indicates how it might have been used, or even if there was, they might still need to check. Can you provide, evidence that this is your work? If you keep all of that, you will have evidence. It's also just really good practice in general because it means that you'll be keeping on track with your assignments anyway. Yes, and one hidden in the middle here is just make sure that the work that you are citing is legitimate, as Heidi said, because AI tools don't hallucinate as much as they used to, but they do still hallucinate. So that's important. Okay, so that's the end of our, official presentation. We've got some time for questions. If anyone has any questions in the room, otherwise you can come and chat to us afterwards. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe we'll just ask for the room first, because if you guys have a question, chances are there's somebody else sitting in the room who's thinking the same thing. Yeah, if you, yeah. No questions? Everyone's, in the middle.
So if you choose not to use AI,
yep,
and then it still flags it as being probably AI generated,
yes.
What happens then?
So if you have not used any AI tools and it still flags, and it can, sometimes it does, depending on the way that you write, you might write in a way that's very similar to the way that, Copilot or something writes. Firstly, still keep drafts of your work, even if you're not using AI tools. So for any piece of work that you produce, you will probably have things like research notes or maybe a bit of a plan or an early draft. So just keep all of that stuff anyway, just in case it's asked of you. Your tutors will probably check things like the, what's the word I want? I've forgotten. The something data, metadata on your documents. So they'll actually be able to see how long you've spent on a particular document and things like that. But yeah, all of those things. So keeping track of all of your drafts and stuff is important, both if you've used AI and if you haven't used AI.
And another note of that is are there specialists within university I'm assuming that all tutors equally are trained to... Yes,
there are. Yep. So every college has a group of academic integrity officers. So these are specialist academics who, if there are any academic integrity concerns, your tutor or topic coordinator will forward your work onto these people, and these people are very experienced in how to read these, like Turnitin reports, how to find all of that analyze your work and things like that. And you'll always have an opportunity to have a chat with that academic integrity officer, and you also will always get advocacy from FUSA as well if you need it. So you won't just automatically fail. You will never just automatically fail an assignment for AI use, the suspected AI use. You will always have an investigation, a chance to plead your case, a chance to have a conversation with that officer, and you'll get support from FUSA.
I'm not using AI from my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm using some scholarly article or some article from Google or something, and I've used it in my assignment, I've referenced it properly.
Yep.
And still, if I get caught from I've used AI, I don't have any history with that. Then how do I do?
Well, that's what I was saying before. So it can happen sometimes that just certain phrases can be, they think that AI has written them.
For example, I was not doing it.
Yes, and even it's common that Grammarly is picked up as being AI, even though most people are fine with you using AI, using Grammarly. I don't know of anyone who doesn't allow Grammarly. But again, keep everything that you've done as you progress on an assignment. Because I hope that none of you just sit down at your computer one day and just spit out an assignment in an hour, right? Hopefully that doesn't happen. If it does, you've probably got other problems other than AI. So every step of the process on your assignment, just keep drafts up. Just save them in a folder somewhere. And that way, if for some reason someone does ask you, hey, it's flagged on the system, have you used AI? You can say, no, I haven't. Here's my research notes. Here's my plan, here's my early drafts, and they'll go, oh, great, thank you very much. No problem. Okay? Yes?
Can I build on that?
Yeah.
I have a question. In terms of saving drafts and proof, my current assignment writing system, which I would like to need to improve on, is that I do a bit of a brain dump, info dump, reference dump, especially I'm studying exercise science. Case studies and stuff. So I'll make notes of things I can answer already and things that I need to research further. Ends up being this big, very, very messy document, which I either then add on to or create a new one.
Mm-hmm.
But often it gets to the point where I started writing and actually answering, maybe adding in references or whatever, and then it'll be this 3,000 word document, especially when my assignment maybe is 500 to 2,000. Then I'll start again and say, is that good enough? Because the first one's a hot mess.
That should be fine, yeah. I call that the vomit draft. I highly, highly encourage everyone to firstly do and keep your vomit drafts. Absolutely, because that shows your thinking on the page. That's what that document does. It shows to whoever's reading it, oh, I can see the messy thinking that has created the polished work. And that's the thing that shows that process, right? So,
And then I guess moving on from that, if I do tighten that a little bit, because it's very time consuming. Would you suggest after every new paragraph, save a new draft, or every time you do, because they'll check the edit.
Yeah, I think, look, it may not have to be after every single paragraph you save a new version, because you probably end up with a billion versions, which, maybe that's fine. But yeah, maybe have some sort of frequency with which you save a new version of your draft. Certainly if you are going to do a major Grammarly